Hello, welcome to AleaSoft webinar. My name is Alejandro Delgado, Technical Director of AleaSoft and Associate Partner of Alea Green, and thank you for joining us today in this webinar with the topic Prospects for the Energy Markets in Europe, Vision of the Future for the Energy Storage. Our first speaker today will be Oriol Saltó, Data Analysis and Modeling Director of AleaSoft and Associate Partner of Alea Green, that will analyze the evolution of the prospects for the European energy markets. Our second speaker will be Raúl García, Director of ASEALEN, the Spanish Energy Storage Association, that will talk about the vision of the future for the energy storage. If you have any questions at any time during the webinar, please use the Q&A menu and we will answer them after the presentations. And now, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Oriol, please share your slides.
Thank you, Alejandro. Good morning, everybody. I'll be the first speaker today. As always, we will see how the energy markets in Europe has evolved during these recent weeks. We will compare on how they were when we made our last webinar at the mid-March. At that time, we were just suffering the consequences of the start of the war in Ukraine. Right now, well, the war is still present, but things has been slowly stabilizing, slowly getting a little bit more stable. Uncertainty is still present, of course, because there is a lot of geopolitical tensions, and as we all know, oil, coal, CO2, gas, everything is all the fuels are very related with the geopolitical situation. So, we will also talk about how the electricity markets are looking right now, and we will look into the future, seeing what we can say about how we are forecasting energy prices into the future. I will talk a little bit about energy storage, also some ideas, but the speaker that we have afterwards will have more, will say more interesting things, and it's more expert than me in energy storage. So let's start. To begin, just a few words about AleaSoft and the services that we are offering, in case you don't know us. We offer forecasting services for the energy sector, covering all the energy markets in Europe. Our forecast reports cover from the short term, so day ahead or hours ahead, up to the long term, so reports that can cover up to 3 decades ahead. Obviously, we forecast demand and price for the energy markets, but also any other variable that is interesting and relevant for the energy markets. Renewable energy productions, obviously weather conditions, socioeconomic indexes, CO2 prices, fuel prices, gas, oil, etc. And not only forecasting day-ahead markets, but also intraday markets, ancillary services, etc. Anything that can be modelized and forecast in the energy sector, we can analyze and model it. The forecasting methodology that we use is our own methodology. We developed it specifically for forecasting the energy sector. The 3 main points that we always like to stress about this methodology is that it is a completely scientifically based methodology. It produces reliable and consistent forecasts that keep consistency over time. And well, we have been using this methodology for more than 22 years now. We started in the Iberian electricity market, and right now we are covering all the electricity markets, all the energy markets in Europe. So we will start with fuels and CO2 emission rights. I always like to start with this historical perspective, a long history of the Brent oil price. Oil price is kind of this global index about how the global economy is going. And right now, let me show okay, the pointer. So right now, just after the war, as we showed in our last webinar last month, just after the beginning of the war, at the beginning of March, we reached the highest prices that we had since the crisis in 2000 and just before the crisis in 2008. And right now, if we focus on these last month, we see how slowly prices have been decreasing. Not exactly stabilizing, but because they have been above $100 per barrel since the end of February, but prices are somehow moderating, going down a little bit steadily. So we are seeing how these prices are getting a little more stable, but as we know, Russia is one of the main producers of oil and exporter of oil at the global scale. So anything related with the trade of oil with Russia is going to impact the oil global prices. So it's we cannot say that prices are stable. We cannot say that prices are going down. Just that. At least for now, things are getting a little more quieter, but we are still at very high levels. Gas prices, on the other hand, suffered a lot. Just after the beginning of the war. We already saw in our last webinar how we had the highest ever prices just at the beginning of March, and since then prices has been quite stable, just above the 100 euros per megawatt hour since then. And again, Russia is always the main supplier of gas for the European countries. Right now, European countries are trying to rely less and less on Russian gas. This means trying to diversify their import options. It's going to take time, but there is a strong commitment to reduce and even avoid completely importing gas from Russia at the very short term, I would say, because before next winter, Germany, which is relying a lot on Russian gas, is already saying that by the next winter they want to just skip Russian gas completely. So we are. So it's going to interesting to see how gas prices react to that. In principle, less supply could mean more volatility on gas prices. It's difficult to say because right now, as we are getting close to much good weather conditions in spring and summer, obviously demand for gas it's reducing, so it's decreasing. So right now it's difficult to see because when the winter comes again, when the weather conditions get worse, we can easily see the prices, gas prices going up, or let's say fluctuating a lot again. From the CO2 emission right prices, what we saw is how at the beginning of the war, as this market has a lot of, let's say, a speculative component, so investments just expecting the prices to go up. So a lot of the investments on this market are not because they need emission rights. They are just expecting the prices to go up to sell the allowances again. So a lot of these speculative movements just went out of market, fearing how the war could impact the prices. So we saw a huge drop on prices just after February 24th. That was the beginning of the war, and since then prices stayed very stable around this 80 euros per ton level. And just after finishing writing this sentence yesterday afternoon, CO2 prices went up by up to 86, 87%. Sorry, 86, 87 euros per ton. So it's just Murphy law. When you write something, it immediately becomes unreliable. So right now, prices are around 86. Right now it is down 1.8%, but still at the level of 87 euros per ton. Again, quite stable, even though, as we expect, they are kind of volatile. If we look now at the electricity markets, as always, I will not have time to go into the detail with every market, but I can show you, we will go through some of the markets using our online data platform, that is available to our customers in order to get data and even do some analysis, covering most of the electricity markets, fuels, futures, economic data, etc. So here we have the electricity prices for the Spanish market, and basically what you are seeing is that during the last weeks we have had, if I put this since from January, basically we have had the lowest prices since the beginning of the year. So right now we had today we are at the 180 together 85. For today we are a little bit higher, close to 200, but basically this was a consequence of, as always, combination of several facts. We can you also have the rest of the variables. We can take a look and see how, for instance, the price you have here in blue, the demand is in red, so you can see how during the Holy Week we have, it's usually a period with very low demand. We also had very good weather conditions, so low demand, high wind in these last days basically meant lower prices. Let me also show you the French market, because we had an interesting event in the French market this last weeks. Let me see if it charts, because when my computer is streaming, it's kind of struggling. But in the French market, we recently had peak prices close to 3,000 euros megawatt hour. 3,000 euros megawatt hour is the limit of the market, so you cannot offer more than 3,000 euros megawatt hour. And this had a consequence because right now the proceedings, so the norm in operating the market, it says that when some of the markets reach at least 60% of the actual limit, the limit must rise, and this is what will happen in the following weeks. The limit of the market will raise from 3,000 to 4,000 euros megawatt hour. So this is something that will affect all the markets that are coupled in the European system. So this means the Iberian market, Germany. All the markets will reach, will increase their operating limit. So now the highest offers will be of 4,000 euros megawatt hour. What else? As I mentioned, let me see if it charts, and if we can see here, we can see gas prices, CO2 prices. And as I mentioned yesterday, just after finishing to writing that sentence, prices went up, well, 87.5 euros per ton. And as I said, right now it's a little bit lower, but still at this level. Again, the prices had been quite stable. And we talk about oil, gas, and CO2. We haven't talked about coal, but let me mention that let me show prices since the beginning of last year. And prices felt the beginning of the war quite importantly, and as a difference from gas and oil, prices have been going up for coal since then. So we don't see still them stabilizing. At least right now they are in a rising trend. And just well, we will afterwards look at all the markets in global. Let me show you just, this is a custom observatory. You can make your own combination of variables in order to analyze them. For instance, I have this this observatory where I just grouped all the prices that I usually look at, so then I can just have a fast look at them, all of them at once. So if they finally load. And if not, well, we can see that in less detail in my slides. So let me go back to my slides and my presentation. Also in our website, you can find all the reports that we have related to the energy sector. So anything related with the energy sector, we can analyze and model it. So this is the evolution of the electricity markets. This is the monthly average. And in December, we had the highest prices ever. But in March, we beat that record. So right now we can say that March has been the most expensive month in the history of the European electricity markets. Well, excluding Poland that had that had lower prices, the average for the most important electricity markets is 11% higher than the prices that we had in December. And looking at the daily prices since the beginning of February, it's not the beginning of the year, but it's the beginning of February. We already saw in our last webinar how after the war started on the 24th. So since then we had a slight downward trend, very slight, but it was a downward trend. But then since then, prices skyrocket. They reached their historical maximums on March 8th. And since then, as I mentioned, things are getting, they look a little bit more stable. At least we had this episode in France with, it was a very specific situation. They were just a couple of hours with prices close to 3,000 euros megawatt hour. They were a combination of very low temperatures. In France, this means a very high electricity demand combined with a lot of unavailabilities in nuclear power plants. So it's just kind of the perfect storm for that 2 hours to reach such a higher prices. But since then, prices in France had been at the level of the rest of the electricity markets. And in Spain, as I mentioned, we had on last Sunday, we had the lowest price so far in this year. And right now we are the lowest market in the continental Europe. So, and right now, let me show you some ideas about energy storage. So here you can see the price differences in the Spanish electricity market. So it's the price difference every day between the lowest price during the solar peak hours. So that price it's usually around 3-4 p.m. depending on the day. The difference between that peak and the the highest peak that we had afterwards, that it's usually in the evening, at the night, around 10, 11, 12 p.m., depending on the day. So that price difference within the same day, it used to be below, for most of the days, below 50 euros megawatt hour. But recently, as prices increased, as the volatility increased, we see that these price differences being above 100 euros megawatt hour is not so uncommon. So we are seeing a lot of days with very high intraday prices differences. And this is an opportunity for energy storage. If I had a huge battery, buying energy at, let's say, 50 euros megawatt hour and then selling it 250 euros higher, so close to 300, for instance, that's a huge benefit. And you see that, as I mentioned, there are a lot of days with price differences higher than 100 euros megawatt hour. So this is something that is going to occur more or less frequently into the future with more renewable energies, more variability. This means some more volatility. So we expect this price difference to keep being in the keep appearing into the future. So what you need in order, if you want to estimate what will be the revenues of your energy storage installation, having hourly prices forecast at the long term in order to estimate what would be the revenue of that installations, having them at the short term in order to operate that that installation, and having them at the midterm in order to plan for maintenance, plan for upgrades. So it's as I said, there are a lot of opportunities for energy storage right now, but we don't have such amount of energy storage, but there will be in the future. And related to that, just on last Sunday, we had the first solar curtailment in the Spanish electricity system. It was a curtailment of around 1 gigawatt hour. It was around 1% of the total production of that day. But it was the first time. So we had in the past curtailments on wind energy, but it was the first time that it was done on the solar energy. So as I said, it was during the Holy Week on Sunday. So that means very low electricity demand combined with very good weather conditions, and there was more renewable production that it was scheduled. So after using all the possible reserve that the electricity operator had, they just called for curtailment on some solar plant. So, and this stresses the importance of having good demand forecast, good renewable energy production forecast, a good forecast of the thermal gap in order to operate the whole system, in order to operate your energy storage plant. And because if these solar plants had an energy storage installation attached to it, instead of just dumping that energy, they could just store it and use it in a future time. So this is just what I'm going to say about energy storage. We will talk a lot more with our next speaker. Just a couple of ideas on how important is the energy storage into the future, but as we are seeing, it is already important, or it would be already important right now. So let's look a little bit into the future, what the futures market is saying right now. And this is the forward curve for the Brent oil. And this is what the future markets are saying right now. This is the forward curve compared to the forward curve that we showed in our last webinar. That was in mid March. So basically 4 weeks ago. Since then, basically, with a little bit, we have seen an increase in at the very short term, but basically no difference at the long term. More interesting is what we have seen in the gas forward curve, because usually, or at least what we saw in our last webinar, was that due to the volatility and the increases in prices at the short term, we saw and we explained how the future prices for 2022, for the rest of the year, increased a lot. But then at the long term, basically around 2025, 2026, we were already reaching the same equilibrium prices that we had, that were around 20 euros per megawatt hour. Right now we are seeing basically the opposite. So as we have seen how spot prices are stabilizing and slowly going down at the short term. We have seen how for the rest of 2022, prices went down by 15 euros megawatt hour. But for the rest of the horizon, basically everything has raised by 10, 11 euros megawatt hour. So this is quite disturbing, because this is usually not with what we usually see. So let's see how this, we will see just afterwards in a couple of slides, how this has had an impact on the power forward curve. So the forward curve for the electricity prices in some of the countries, not in all countries. For the CO2 prices, so basically, as always, is a forward curve that is kind of let's say a rigid curve that moves more or less coherently, following the prices, following the spot prices. So spot prices down from after the war, they have increased a little bit, less than 9 euros per ton. But what we have been seeing we have in several webinars also mentioning that the forward curve is getting steeper. So either we have a lot of increase or a lot of decrease at the short term. In the long term, we are always seeing more tendency of prices going up a little bit more than in the short term, or going down a little bit less. So curve is getting steeper. So it's something that we have been seeing for several webinars in a row right now. So it's an interesting characteristics. And as I mentioned, the forward curve for the electricity markets, Italy, France, and Germany, just representation of some of the most important markets. Basically, as in the case, as in the forward curve for the gas futures, basically an increase. So, and it's basically completely correlated, because gas prices increased by 10 euros megawatt hour, more or less. 20 euros megawatt hour is what the electricity prices increased. So a change completely correlated with the gas prices. But as always, the curve in the Spanish electricity markets, it's far below them. Again, this is a good reminder that it's not a very good idea to use the forward curves from futures market in order to as a reference of future spot prices, because as you see, they are very liquid markets, basically based on synthetic prices. And in the case of Spain, why they are so low compared to the others? Well, these prices basically reflect trades and PPAs registered to the clearinghouse, bilateral contracts that already have a discount on the expected spot price. So it's not a good idea to use these curves as an expected spot price for the future. And just to finish, let's talk a little bit about what we are taking into account right now in order to forecast energy prices, also as a summary of what all the things that we have seen. Basically, we have seen, as I said, uncertainty is still present, it's still very present, but we are seeing a stabilization and a slightly downward trend in some of the markets. But as we more or less as we had been saying this last webinars, high prices, this level of high prices and uncertainty is expected to to last at least until next winter. So if we have to expect an important significant drop in energy prices, most probably they won't be before the next winter. So starting from the next spring, we can start to seeing these some decreases in prices more notable and significant than the ones that we have right now. Sorry, we're having right now. There is an important, there is a trending topic, let's say, about how the Iberian market, so Spain and Portugal, are trying to deal with the high energy prices, high electricity prices. They have sent to the European Commission a proposal in order to limit the gas prices or the offers of the gas-powered stations in the electricity markets, in order to limit or to not to limit, but in order to make the prices, electricity prices, lower. It's interesting. We have seen in the futures market in Spain some movements, probably related to this proposal. It's not clear still if the proposal will be accepted or not. The limit proposed by the Spanish and Portuguese government is to limit the gas prices at 30 euros megawatt hour. Some news talk about the Commission preferring higher limits around 60, 70 euros megawatt hour. In any case, if it is finally accepted, it is meant to be a temporary situation, a temporary limit. So the first idea is to keep it at least until the end of the year. But obviously, if it is finally accepted, once you have the limit in place, it will be strategic to use it as long as you need. Okay, we will see, because it's going to be interesting, because if it is accepted, it will mean that in Spain and Portugal, we will have 2 auctions every day. So one auction without this limit, that will be the price for exchanging energy with France and with the rest of the markets. And then we will have a second auction, just internal, to set another price for the just for the Iberian market. It's going to be interesting, either if it's if it is approved finally or if it is not. And again, and finally, at the longer term, as we mentioned in our last webinar, it will be interesting to see how all the energy transition is being accelerated or not, because if the European Union wants to get energy independence as soon as possible in order to be less dependent on gas and oil prices, basically on gas and oil from Russia, they said that they want to accelerate the increase in renewable capacity, the increase in green hydrogen production. So it will be interesting to see if it is finally implemented. So how fast or how faster it is going to be, and how it will impact on energy markets, obviously. So and just let me invite you to our next webinar. It's going to be April 21st. We will be talking about the energy markets, about forecasting, about we will be talking about Alea Green, the division in AleaSoft in charge of long-term forecasting. So we will be talking a lot about 2030, 2050, what we are expecting there. So it will be very interesting. And if you have the chance to participate in the Spanish version of the webinar, that it's instead of 10 a.m. it's at 12 p.m. There afterwards we will have a round table with very interesting people, very expert people on electricity and energy markets. So if you have the chance, you can participate. So thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you very much, Oriol. Great presentation as always. And Raul, thank you for joining us today. And when you're ready, please, you can share your slides.
Okay, thank you very much, Oriol, Antonio, Alejandro, and of course, AleaSoft. It's a pleasure being here talking and discussing about electrical market and energy storage. And it is necessary to increase knowledge, technical knowledge, but regularity framework too, as we can see in some questions. So let me a moment. Okay, can you confirm me if you can see the presentation?
Yes, it looks great. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Let me a little introduce from ASEALEN. ASEALEN is a non-profit association of companies involved in energy storage with all available technologies. I'm at accelerating the decarbonization of the electricity sector and in thermal uses. Okay, in our association we have manufacturers, demand companies, renewable companies, and corporate promoters. Currently, there are part of ASEALEN 26 companies, very different sizes and with very different activities. As I said, manufacturers, engineers, producers, technologists, consultants, suppliers, investors, and asset managers. So we tried to full all the chain of the renewable storage and energy activity. So technologies. First of all, it's important to say what the storage is in Spain. It's defined in Law 24 of 2013. And storage is to conserve energy to be used at a different time. Use of electricity is different than its production, or storage is to perform the conversion of electrical energy into a form of energy that can be stored for the subsequent conversion of such energy in electrical energy. So with this definition, we have three main technologies, in addition to many others in the research phase. The main technologies are pumped hydro, molten salt tanks, and conventional electromechanical batteries. As I said, there are other technologies as redox flow, ALYSE, liquid air energy storage, and CAES, compressed air energy storage, that are in our scope to as next technologies. And its evolution will depend if they got some scheme or some grants as innovation fund, or perhaps other tools that could be in short time. So if we talking about pumped hydropower in Spain, this is the technology that offers the maximum guarantee of operation of the system. Spain is the European country with the largest number of reservoirs and the third in the world, with a capacity of more than 6 gigawatts of pumping power. Okay, this 6 gigawatt of pumping power are equivalent, or they are able to stack more than 85 gigawatts hour. If we see all the whole hydropower system in Spain, the storage capacity is the maximum historical capacity stacking is 14,000 gigawatt hour. It's interesting to say that the minimum capacity storage in Spain is about, in this system, is about 5,000 gigawatt hours. So the hydropower system is able to move or to storage between 5-6 gigawatt hours to 10,000 gigawatt hour per year. No, this is more or less the figures, that it depends on the different rain of each year. No? So we can see in this picture in the right part of the screen, when we can see, let me a moment, please, with this. How in this day, this is the day of last year, but we could use some days of these last days, as we said, we saw in the earlier presentation. We have more than 2,000 megawatts. But this is not the pumping result. This is the total result of the hydropower capacity of the power in this moment of the day. You know? So in these special days, we had some days with more than 6, 7, 8 hours, with this result up to 2,500 megawatts. So the other technology that probably is the most unknown technology out of Spain is the molten salt tanks. No, these tanks function as a small reservoirs accumulating the sun during the day and producing on demand later. This is the current function today in the Spanish plant system, or the Spanish plant CSP plants. The current range is daily, but they can, or they could incorporate electrical heaters or even heat pump machines, heat pump turbines. In Spain, they're operating 870 megawatt with of CSP plus molten storage tanks, with an energy capacity of 6.5 gigawatts hour. This capacity could be increased with the current fleet of CSP plant, roughly to a double figure. No? And we believe that this technology could get a deployment as a standalone technology. So as we can see in this picture too, sure, let me second, please. So, okay, as we can see in this picture, we can see the current function of the of this plant is operating the whole day. No? At the end of the day, we can see how the plants with a storage with these tanks can continue the operation until the next day. This is the standard operation in the 6 best months of the year, but in the winter and autumn months, this operation is more closely to a PV plant. So in the future, this plant probably operate with a deferred energy to the night, and not competing in the midday with the PV plants, or even with an hybridization with PV plants. So the last technology are the conventional electrochemical batteries. I assume that these are the most common, the most knowledge, the most known technology, with 2 main applications: behind the meter, linked to small and medium size and self-consumption applications, and from the meter, linked to power generation and grid super applications, like an hybrid plant, or as standalone plants. Okay, the main point that I like highlight of this technology is the wide range of powers and duration configuration. And this is an advantage over the previous systems, along with the lower technical and administrative difficulties. You know, you can deployment this technology with lower power facilities, but the previous plant needs most of the cases more than 100 megawatts to get a competitive facility. What about the storage in the Spanish planification? I assume that most of these figures are known for all of you, but this is the National Energy Climate Plan from Spain. So that here are the main figures. So what can we see, or what can we say about that? What we can say is that the goals to 2025 are very, very hard to fulfill. Perhaps the storage from the meter could be achieved, but not in 2025, perhaps in 2026, as we will see later. And the distributed energy storage, the behind the meter, probably will overwhelm. But we have to wait yet to the result of the recovery plans actions that I will explain later. But the rest of the technologies, it's almost impossible and very, very hard to comply to fulfill these figures in 2030. So this is the plan, but we have to do some things and some regulation adjustment to get to fulfill these goals. So regulation, okay, this is the I guess that the main problem or the main barrier, no, the regulation about energy storage. So what are the main instruments that we have already accommodated in Spain? In Spain, we have an energy storage strategy that is a very, very complete document that explains very well which are the barriers, explain what are the main regulatory changes that are needed, and explain or describe several instruments, several tools that could push that can push the storage facilities. But it's not a mandatory document, it's just a strategy, so it's a guide. No, the next important regulation is the Royal Decree Law, or Law Royal Decree 23/2020. This is a miscellaneous document, but in this Royal Decree sets this Royal Decree set the storage definition that I said before, set to the criteria for considering what is the same facility when you can change or modify the design of the facility, and this is a door open to hybridization of the plants that are in the middle of the permitting procedure, and establish or set to the store and addition is an hybridization. So it's the first step to introduce storage in the electrical sector, and storage as a renewable production. Okay. Other instruments already accommodated are the Royal Decree 1183 of 2020. That is the grid action access and connection procedures, no, linked or complemented with the circular 1 of CNMC. In this document, assume that storage has to get the access to the grid as an electricity production, establish or sets to the hybridization and standalone procedures, mark that the guarantee of non-principal technology has to be the half of the main technology. So if you go with an and hybrid facility, usually the storage will suffer this other guarantee that is lower value, but it's another barrier more to or another risk more to the project. And sets to the access and connection capacity tenders that how we see the storage can be a criteria in these tenders. Okay, the last Royal Decree Law 6 of this year. This is a super miscellaneous document, but this there is only one reference to storage in the final disposal fee, but it's a very important disposal in order to get a more I don't know how to say, a more firmness framework, legal framework, because this establishes that the administrative authorization will be as an electricity production, and the registration in the electrical registry is as an electricity production, and that apply for standalone and hybrid plants. So this is perhaps a very long way, no? Because as I said before, we have a definition of a storage. What is a storage? What is a storage facility? A storage owner in the Spanish sector, electricity sector, but the different barriers are being solved, saying that storage is a production facility. So this is good in order to going forward, but this has several problems, as I said. We will see later. No? Other instruments or specific instruments that push or help storage are the tender for access capacity in the just transition point Mudéjar. This is a tender for access capacity that establishes or that sets different criteria that give points if you use a storage or synchronous machine. I remember that, for example, molten salt tanks is a synchronous technology, and for automatic power reduction service, that if you have a storage in your facilities, is something very easy to implement in your plants. The other direct tool to push or to foster storage in Spain is the Royal Decree 477, granting self-consumption and storage. So these grants are under the recovery plan, and set direct grants to behind the meter storage links to self-consumption with that different requirements. So with this tool, is expected to deploy about 250 megawatt hour of storage, roughly something more than 100 megawatt of power storage capacity. Remember that, as we said in the National Energy and Climate Plan, the goal to 2030 for this line is 400 megawatts. So I think it's easy to fulfill this goal. Other instrument already accommodated is one for grants for innovative energy storage and R&D projects under the Recovery Plan 2. We are in the first call in time. The close date is the 10th of May, and it's aligned with 50 million in this call, up to 150 euro millions for next call. And the goal is to developed or increased the technically ready levels from 6, 7, 8 up to 9. The minimum power or capacity of the project have to be 1 megawatt or 1 megawatt hour, and it has to be in operation before April 2026. Okay, it's important to highlight that this is a line for R&D projects. So we hope that this line could be have some success, but it's a very hard or very challenging process, mixing R&D and business case operating in market to recover the investment. So under the spend recovery plan, this is the typical or the path that the ministry has shown several times. As I said before, we have here, wait a moment, please. Okay. Here we have the self-consumption grants that I said before, the grants from R&D storage facility, and the last tool that is pending to deploy is a grant, or I don't know, we don't know how it's going to be to deploy of a storage system with a goal of 600 megawatt before 2023, but in operation before 2020 or before in April of 2026. The full amount of this plan, the recovery plan to storage is 684 megawatts. So this is here we began with the main instruments to be accommodated. This line that I have said, grants for investment in storage deployment projects, we expect will be aligned with more or less 425 million euros for investment. It has to be granted before end 2023, and depend on how will be considered the rest of the capacity of the power storage deployment. The new capacity will be between 600 or 450 megawatts. So the other tool or the other instrument that we hope will be very soon is the third auction under the REAL, the special, not the special, the new energy renewable system is in the public consultation of this document established 200 megawatt of CSP plants with an optional hybrid, and the most highlight thing it's important to point here in this public consultation that under these schemes, under the regulation of this scheme, the facilities not having a storage system, but this facility can have storage if they are used for the exclusive storage of energy produced by the facility. And in this third auction is required a storage of 6 hours for these CSP plants. So we have to wait. What is the final the final reach of this third auction? But this is a possible way to start deployment of every or different storage facilities. No, we can get some reserve for plants with no storage in the sense of the free storage, but use this storage as in the CSP plant as a buffer, and getting that plants in dispatchable plants. So we will see what happened with that, but it could be a new way to go. Other instruments to be accommodated, capacity market. Okay, what is the problem or the barriers with the capacity market? That it has to be, or it requires an European resource adequacy assessment, and we have a risk or a doubt in the firm restrictions of the different technologies. This capacity market needs from different operation procedures of Red Eléctrica, the TSO of Spain, the duration for the tool is 5 years in the case of new facilities, and can participate any subject. So will be a very hard competition between demand and storage and probably some producers. These facilities have to not have to emit CO2. So it has to be clarified what happened with the storage and guarantee of origin, and okay, this is a risk that it has to be clear. Other tool that could help to the development of storage is the Royal Decree about research and innovation in the electrical sector, known as the Sandboxes Royal Decree. But these sandboxes are focused on pilot projects, tests, assessment. It has to be temporary, and it has they have to set some limits. So we think this sandbox could be very interesting for new business, new digital business, but we are not sure how we will help to new big storage facilities. Climate change law 7 of 2021 in Spain. This is a very important law. It's a law, and in the final discussion 11th says or reads that in 12 months, this is the 21st of the next month of May, it should be a new proposal to reform the energy regulation framework. And in this full reform should be included everything about storage. So we don't know if there is going to be a specific public consultation about that, or if it is going to continue in this path, that I have explained with different regulatory documents. Okay, so we have to wait, and we hope that in the next weeks and our next months, the ministry could said something about this. Okay, other important, very important regulatory aspect that is pending to solve is the grid access and connection demand side. This is a document of the CNMC, and as we said before, the access permission is permit carry out as electricity production, but storage facilities are two demand facilities, so they have to comply with demand conditions. And today we don't know what are these conditions when you are charging from the grid. So this is important. This is a regulation that it has to be set this year or approved this year. And we know that the CNMC is working on it, so we will have news very soon, I hope. Okay. Other instrument or other I don't know how to say. This is a technical requirements most of the cases, but it's important, no? Because we have to find what is an storage facility, but we need that the TSO sets or approve definitely different operation procedures. Most important is PO 12.2 that establishes that sets minimum design, equipment, and operational safety requirements. Okay, that where give or two modes, two modalities to a storage facility as we will now. Other operation procedures are the PO 7.4 about voltage control service, and very other POs regarding concerning ancillary service markets, no, and integration in Mario and Picasso platforms. We said before the capacity market required POs too. So why is important this PO 12.2? 12.2, sorry, because in this PO said that you can go with, or you have to fulfill several requirements as a standalone facility, or if you are an hybrid plant, you have two options. No, the mode A, that it's separated modules and separated requirements for each module, and the mode B that is joint requirements for all the modules of the facility or the plants, no, and this is important, at least in the case, for example, that you have a module with a synchronous machine or with an electric park. No, if you have a joint fulfill of the requirements, it's very hard because the synchronous machine can fulfill the electric requirements. So is this important? And this document said how you have to design your plan, and we hope, because we have been waiting for this PO for more than a year, is going to release soon, and this is perhaps the main technological barrier established today in order to operate in the different markets in Spain. No? Other important thing regarding to TSOs is what I said, hoja de ruta de MIE, the path from the energy markets, the energy markets. The last lines, the 4, 5 last lines, number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is voltage. This is hybrid plants. This is new SRS secondary, Marianne Picasso, the manual and automatic frequency reserve stores. So as we can see here, Red Eléctrica put in or carry this project between end of this year, first half of the 2023. Here we were working locally, and in 2024 this will prepare to an European platforms integration. So the conclusion of this is that the storage facility don't be able or won't be able to operate in these secondary and tertiary markets up to 2023 year in the best of the cases. Okay. other instruments, OMIE, the market operator, has to include storage as a market subject. But in the meanwhile, storage can operate as producer and demand, like a pumped hydro. Okay, this is a temporary solution, but today, if you has received or if you has got permission from your DSO or your TCO to connect your facility, you can operate in the market with these two figures, okay, with some limitations, but you can operate, okay. And the final document or the final instruments to be accommodated, perhaps other grants under the recovery plan. We are thinking in specific oceans or tender or plans for on islands, and innovative business models that could include use of storage. And what about the Repower EU? I know if you know that a few days ago, several European associations have sent a letter to the European Commission to ask for include the storage facilities and the storage activity in this plan, no? Because it's a plan in order to reduce the dependence of natural gas, but it's not said any word about storage in the electricity market. Very lot of words about gas storage, but any word in electrical storage. So ASEALEN is a co-signatory of this letter, and we hope that this instrument could push or help to start deployment too. So as we are a bit late, there are some slides about the climate, energy, and environmental guidelines for state aid. I'm going through very, very fast, but the most important thing is that you understand that there are different lines for help storage under this state aid. No? The first one is the energy from renewable sources, but it's important to understand that what we understand from production of renewable sources. So in this line said that reads that includes renewable electricity used for filling a storage system connected behind the meter, but excludes electricity producer as a result of a storage system. So this is a limit in how a storage can work within renewable producer. Okay. Other line is the energy infrastructure, and he say energy infrastructure is any physical equipment or facility. Here speaks or here reads about concerning hydrogen, say storage facilities. So regarding concerning hydrogen, recognize that the storage facilities can be under this state aid instead of electrical energy storage, that it's not under this state. This is an important difference, I guess, because they are the same hydrogen as gas. No? Other line is for the reduction and removal of CO2. Here it's very important because it says that all technologies that contribute to the reduce of greenhouse gas emissions are in principle eligible, but it has to reduce emissions. So if one state member has to develop or deploy a scheme or a support scheme with this line, has to demonstrate that these storage facilities reduce emission. And this perhaps is obvious, but it's not so easy to prove or to show. Also covers dedicated infrastructure project, including hydrogens for use as storage. Okay, this is another interesting thing. Other line is aid for energy infrastructure. Why is this important? This line is important. Okay, first of all, it says that support to energy infrastructure within the framework of a legal monopoly is not subject to state aid. So if TSO or TSO in Spain, Red Eléctrica, or another distributed deploy and storage system is not under this state out because it's a legal monopoly. Okay, but the most important thing here is that it says that this section will also apply to energy storage facilities until end of 2023 connected to transmission or distribution lines, standalone electricity storage irrespective of the voltage level. So if one member state wants to deploy a standalone electricity storage facility, has to be analyzed under this line for energy infrastructure and not under the renewable energy producer. So this is another barrier that we understand very well, but is here, and we have to live with this. Finally, for electricity storage facility, the Commission may require the demonstration of a specific market failure, and this is the very hard thing in this topic. Okay. Finally, aid for the security of electricity supply. No, this is the capacity market mechanism that we said before, and I think it's not important what to say. Finally, revenues, incomes. What are the incomes of the storage facility? Markets, energy arbitrage, but what about future natural gas price? What about price reduction in Spain? This minoration of the wind for profits, ancillary services, not before 23-24, as said before. What about capacity market? In Spain, we have 18 gigawatts hydro, 26 gigawatts combined cycles, 7 gigawatts nuclear. Demand participation, max demand of 45 gigawatts, perhaps an increase with electric vehicles and the electrification of heat demand. The key here, the point is how to ensure the aggregate revenue, because energy storage can't take with only or one or two of these revenues. So the current instrument, the current possibilities in Spain are under the Royal Decree 413, the old fashioned specific remuneration regime, the old RI plus RO, investment and operation remuneration, or use the current economic regime of renewable energy, the RER, as pay as needed. But as we said before, under these schemes today are renewable production, so the storage has to work as a buffer, not with completely liberty of operation. Okay, so we need a support for standalone facilities, and this is probably the main thing that we are working in the association in order to get a legal framework that allow a natural development of the energy storage. So this is all. Sorry for these minutes more, but thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Raúl, for that great presentation, and thank you again for sharing this webinar with us. But well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, so we will answer your questions directly by email. And thank you again, Oriol and Raúl, for your presentations, and the audience for joining. Have a nice day.